Big History. This is my favorite course of all time. In fact, it's a very special course because it creates a framework for so many of the things you'll learn in other courses. Big History is more comprehensive than any other course, not just because of the amount of time it covers, but because of the way it takes what we know from the sciences, what we know from history, economics, and brings it all together. When I took Big History, I felt like I knew a lot of the individual things already. I knew a bit about biology, a bit about physics, a bit about how civilizations had more specialized roles and that populations had grown over time. But I'd never seen it all put together. So the reminder about the elements, the sun, the planets, early life, and how it went for so long as being single-celled, and then we had this explosion of multi-celled animals. The early human history and what we now know about that, very up to date. And then how, as civilization came along, how it was agriculture, specialized roles, and certain characteristics of the different countries and continents that lead us to the world that we have today. So it put it all together. It made it all made sense. And in fact, it made me feel bad that I hadn't seen a course like this when I was young. I think I would have known a lot more, been able to connect knowledge in ways that I just wasn't able to do. And so I got excited about, hey, this is a course that everybody should get the benefit of. In many ways, what you'll learn from Big History is just the starting point. You'll want to get more in depth on these various knowledge areas, and you'll want to start to form your own ideas. When we think about rising incomes, longer lifespan, our ability to treat people in a just way, to move from just our family or our tribe out to not only the country level, but to thinking about humanity as a whole, and yet, given the scale, how do we address that? How do we organize to solve problems in that way? And so the end of the course will leave you with a lot of questions. This course will give you the background, but it's your curiosity, your thinking that will make it valuable to you in your intellectual ambition. Optimistic about where the world will be 50 years from now. I hope I'm around to see it, but I think we can already see the shape of things in some ways. The human population, which was growing at a very rapid rate, is now growing at a slower rate because as we become successful, families have chosen to have less children. And so we can see a peak population that makes it possible to think about living within the resource constraints that we have. We can also see a decline in violence. It's amazing now because we hear about all the violent things around the world, but every century the world has had a lot less war, a lot less violent deaths, and we've come to value the work that's being done but in other countries, making great products, and really think together about humanity's common future. The pace of innovation will need to surprise us in some ways. What form this great energy source will be that will avoid us destroying the environment. That's an invention that's very, very important. How much care will we give towards making sure that the poorest several billion are not completely left out? There's been a little bit of progress there, but the inequity level still should concern us quite a bit. And then there are things that are harder to predict. For example, how important will robots be in 50 years? Maybe 20 years ago, people, when they first heard about robots, thought, wow, that's pretty scary. What does it mean? But then when it didn't really happen, they stopped thinking about it. It's almost like only a curiosity in the movies or toys, and yet clearly in the decades ahead, the cost, the capabilities will mimic what we've seen in science fiction. And so we'll have to see, how do we take advantage of that? As we're living longer, how do we find fulfillment? What does a working career look like in terms of timing? The world will have aged on average, and that brings with it very interesting problems. And so it's not without challenges, but the path of extended lifespan, more science, more global understanding, sense of our common humanity, more education, more ability to watch a great course and not give up the curiosity that you're born with, but try to think about the world and where it can go and how you can contribute to it. I think all of these things are taking more advantage of our innate capabilities and will allow us to make 50 years from now a far better place than even what we have today.